Fablehaven, Chapter 7, Prisoner in a Jar. The floorboards creaked gently as Kendra and Seth tiptoed down the stairs. Early morning light filtered through the closed blinds and drawn curtains. The house was still, the opposite of last night. Beneath their covers in the dark attic the night before, Kendra and Seth had found sleeping impossible as they listened to howling laughter, shattering glass, twittering flutes, slamming doors, and the constant din of shouting conversations. When they opened the door to sneak down and spy on the festivities, Lena was always seated at the foot of the stairs reading a book. "Go back to bed," she said each time they attempted a reconnaissance mission. "Your grandfather is still negotiating." Eventually, Kendra fell asleep. She believed it was silence that finally awakened her in the morning. When she rolled out of bed, Seth rose well. Now they were creeping down the stairs in hopes of glimpsing the aftermath of the night's revelry. The brass coat rack had toppled in the entry hall, surrounded by hooked triangles of broken glass. A painting lay face down on the floor, frame cracked. A primitive symbol was scrawled on the wall in orange chalk. They passed quietly into the living room. Tables and chairs had been overturned. Lampshades hung crooked and torn. Empty glasses, bottles, and plates lay scattered about, several of them cracked or broken. A ceramic pot lay in pieces around a pile of soil and the remnants of a plant. Food stains appeared at every turn. Melted cheese caked into the carpeting. Tomato sauce drying on the arm of a love seat. A squashed eclair oozing custard all over an ottoman. Grandpa Sorensen was snoring on the couch, using a curtain for a blanket. The curtain rod was still attached. He clutched a wooden scepter like a teddy bear. The strange staff was carved with vines twisting around the shaft and topped by a large pine cone. Despite all the commotion they had heard the night before, Grandpa was the only sign of life. Seth roamed off toward the study. Kendra was about to follow when she noticed an envelope on a table near her grandfather. A thick seal of crimson wax had been broken, and part of a folded paper protruded invitingly. Kendra glanced at Grandpa Sorensen. He was facing away from the letter and showed no sign of stirring. If he didn't want a letter read, he shouldn't leave it out in the open, right? It wasn't as if she were stealing it unopened from his mailbox. And she had several unanswered questions about Fablehaven, not the least of which concerned what was actually going on with her grandma. Kendra eased over to the table, a queasy feeling in her stomach. Maybe she should have Seth read it. Invading privacy really wasn't her forte. But it would be so simple. The letter was right in front of her, conveniently sticking out of the open envelope. Nobody would know. She tipped the envelope up and found there was no address or return address. The envelope was blank, hand-delivered. Had Maddox brought it? Probably. After a final glance to ensure Grandpa still looked comatose, Kendra slid the cream-colored paper out of the envelope and unfolded it. The message was written in bold script. "Stanley, I trust this missive finds you in good health. It has come to our attention that the SES has been exhibiting unusual activity in the northeast of the United States. We remain uncertain whether they have pinpointed the location of Fablehaven, but one unconfirmed report suggests they are in communication with an individual or individuals on your preserve. Mounting evidence implies the secret is out. I need not remind you about the attempted infiltration of a certain preserve in the interior of Brazil last year, nor the significance of that preserve in connection with the significance of yours. As you well know, we have not detected such aggressive activity from the SES in decades. We are preparing to reassign additional resources to your vicinity. As always, secrecy and misdirection remain top priorities. Be vigilant. I continue to search diligently for a resolution to the situation with Ruth. Do not lose hope. With everlasting fidelity, S." Kendra reread the letter. Ruth was her grandma's name. What situation? SES had to be the Society of the Evening Star. What did the S at the end of the letter stand for? The entire message seemed a bit vague, probably deliberately. "Look at this," Seth whispered from the kitchen. Kendra jumped, every muscle in her body tensing. Grandpa smacked his lips and shifted on the couch. Kendra stood temporarily immobilized by guilty panic. Seth was not looking at her. He was stooping over something in the kitchen. Grandpa became still again. Kendra folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope, trying to situate it as she had found it. Moving stealthily, she joined Seth, who crouched over muddy hoof prints. "Were they riding horses in here?" he asked. "It would explain the racket," she murmured, trying to sound casual. Lena appeared in the doorway, dressed in a bathrobe, hair awry. "Look at you early risers," she said softly. "You caught us before cleanup." Kendra stared at Lena, trying to keep her expression unreadable. The housekeeper showed no indication of having seen her spying at the letter. Seth pointed at the hoof prints. "What the heck happened?" "The negotiations went well." "Is Maddox still here?" Seth said hopefully. Lena shook her head. "He left in a taxi about an hour ago." Grandpa Sorensen shuffled into the kitchen, wearing boxer socks and an undershirt stained with brown mustard. He squinted at them. "What are you all doing up at this awful hour?" "It's after 7, Seth said. Grandpa covered a yawn with his fist. He held the envelope in his other hand. "I'm feeling a little under the weather today. Might go lie down for a spell, as you were." He shambled off, scratching his thigh. "You kids may want to play outside this morning," Lena said. "Your grandfather was up until 40 minutes ago. He had a long night." "I'm going to have a tough time taking Grandpa seriously when he tells us to show respect for the furniture," Kendra said. "It looks like he drove a tractor through here." "Pulled by horses," Seth added. "Maddox enjoys a celebration, and your grandfather is an accommodating host," Lena said. "Without your grandmother here to rein in the merriment, things got a little too festive." Didn't help that they invited the satires. She nodded at the muddy hoofprints. "Satires?" Kendra asked. "Like goatmen?" Lena nodded. "Some would say they liven up a party too much." "Those are goat prints?" Seth asked. "Satire prints, yes." "I wish I could have seen them," Seth mourned. "Your parents would be glad you didn't. Satires would only teach you bad manners. I think they invented them." "I'm sad we missed the party," Kendra said. "Don't be. It was not a party for young people. As caretaker, your grandfather would never drink, but I can't vouch for satires. We'll have a proper party before you leave us." "Will you invite satires?" Seth asked. "We'll see what your grandfather says," Lena said, doubtfully. "Maybe one." Lena opened the refrigerator and poured 2 glasses of milk. "Drink your milk and then run along. I have some heavy cleaning ahead of me." Kendra and Seth took their glasses. Lena opened the pantry, removing a broom and dustpan, and left the room. Kendra drank her milk in several deep swallows and set her empty glass on the counter. "Want to go for a swim?" she asked. "I'll catch up," Seth said. He still had milk in his glass. Kendra walked away. After finishing his milk, Seth peeked into the pantry. So many shelves packed with so much food. One shelf featured nothing but large jars of homemade preserves. Closer investigation revealed the jars were lined up 3 deep. Seth backed out of the pantry and looked around. Re-entering the pantry, he removed a jar of boysenberry preserves, pulling another jar forward from the second row to disguise the absence. They might miss a half-empty jar from the fridge, but one of many unopened jars from the stuffed pantry? Not likely. He could be sneakier than Kendra knew. The fairy balanced a twig protruding from a low hedge beside the pool. Arms extended to either side, she walked along the tiny limb, adjusting as it wobbled. The further out she got, the less stable she became. The miniature beauty queen had platinum hair, a silver dress, and glittering translucent wings. Seth sprang forward, slashing downward with the pool skimmer. The blue mesh struck the twig, but the fairy darted away the last instant. She hovered, shaking a finger, scolding at Seth. He swung the skimmer again, and the nimble fairy evaded capture a second time, soaring well out of range. "You shouldn't do that," Kendra said from the pool. "Why not? Maddox catches them." "Out in the wild," Kendra corrected. These already belong to Grandpa. It's like hunting lions at a zoo. Maybe hunting lions at the zoo would be good practice. You're going to end up making the fairies mad at you. They don't mind, he said, creeping up on a fairy with wide, gauzy wings fluttering inches above a flower bed. They just fly away. He slowly moved the pull skimmer into position. The fairy was directly beneath the mesh, less than 2 feet away from captivity. With a flick of his wrist, he slapped the skimmer down sharply. The fairy dodged off and glided off. What are you going to do if you catch one? Probably let it go. So what's the point? To see if I can do it. Kendra boosted herself out of the water. Well, obviously you can't. They're too fast. Dripping, she walked over to the towel. Oh my gosh, look at that one. She pointed to the base of a blooming bush. Where? Right there. Wait till she moves. She's practically invisible. He stared at the bush, unsure whether she was teasing him. A bobbing distortion began warping the leaves and blossoms. Whoa! See? She's like clear glass. Seth edged forward, clutching the pull skimmer. Seth, don't. Suddenly he charged, opting for a rapid assault this time. The transparent fairy flew away, vanishing against the sky. Why won't they hold still? They're magic, Kendra said. The fun is just looking at them, seeing all the variety. Real fun, like when Mom makes us go on drives to look at the leaves changing color. I want to grab some breakfast. I'm starving. Then go. Maybe I'll have better luck without you squawking. Kendra walked to the house wrapped in her towel. She entered the back door and found Lena dragging a broken coffee table into the kitchen. Much of the surface of the table had been made of glass. Most of it was broken. Need a hand? Kendra asked. Mine are plenty. Kendra went and grabbed the other end of the table. They set it in a corner of the spacious kitchen. Other broken objects rested there as well, included the jagged fragments of the ceramic pot Kendra had noticed earlier. Why pile everything here? This is where the brownies come. Brownies? Come look. Lena led Kendra to the basement door, pointing out a second little door at the base, about the size a cat would use. The brownies have a special hatch that admits them to the basement, and they can use this door to enter the kitchen. They are the only magical creatures with permission to enter the house at all. The brownie portals are guarded by magic against all other creatures of the forest. Why let them in? Brownies are useful. They repair things. They make things. They are remarkable craftsmen. They'll fix the broken furniture, improve it if they can. Why? It is their nature. They will accept no reward. How nice of them, Kendra said. In fact, tonight, remind me to leave out some cooking ingredients. By morning, they will have baked us a treat. What will they cook? You never know. You don't make requests. You just leave out ingredients and see how they combine them. How fun! I'll leave out a bunch. No matter what strange combinations you leave, they always invent something delicious. There is so much I don't know about Fablehaven, Kendra declared. How big is it? The preserve stretches for miles in some directions, much bigger than you would suppose. And there are creatures throughout? Through most of it, Lena said. But as your grandfather has warned you, some of these creatures can be deadly. There are many places on the property where even he does not dare venture. I want to know more, all the details. Be patient. Let it unfold. She turned to the refrigerator, changing the subject. You must be hungry. A little. I'll whip us up some eggs. Will Seth want some? Probably, Kendra said, leaning against the counter. I've been wondering, is everything from mythology true? Explain what you mean. I've seen fairies and evidence of satires. Is it all real? No mythology or religion that I know of holds all the answers. Most religions are based on truths, but they are also polluted by philosophies and imaginations of men. I take it your questions refer to Greek mythology. Is there a pantheon of petty gods who constantly bicker and interfere in the lives of mortals? I know of no such beings. Are there some true elements to those ancient stories and beliefs? Obviously. You're talking to a former naiad. Scrambled? What? The eggs. Oh, sure. Lena began cracking the eggs into a pan. Many of the beings who dwell here existed gracefully when primitive man foraged in ragged tribes. We taught man the secrets of bread and clay and fire. But man became blind to us over time. Interactions with mortals became rare. And then man began to crowd us. Explosions in population and technology stole many of our ancient homes. Mankind held no particular malice toward us. We had just simply faded into colorful caricatures, inhabited myths and fables. There are quiet corners of the world where our kind continue to thrive in the wild, and yet the day will inevitably come when the only space remaining to us will be these sanctuaries, a precious gift from enlightened mortals. It's so sad, Kendra said. Do not frown. My kind do not dwell on these concerns. They forget the fences and enclosing these preserves. I should not speak of what used to be. With my fallen mind, I see the changes much more clearly than they do. I feel the loss more keenly. Grandpa said a night is coming when all the creatures here will run wild. Midsummer Eve, the festival night. What's it like? I'd better not say. I don't think your grandfather wants you kids worrying about it until the time comes. He would rather have you scheduled your visit to avoid the festival night. Kendra tried to sound nonchalant. Will we be in danger? Now I have you worried. You'll be fine if you follow the instructions your grandfather gives you. What about the Society of the Evening Star? Maddox sound worried about them. The Society of the Evening Star has always been a threat, Lena admitted. But these preserves have endured for centuries, some for millennia. Fablehaven is a well-protected, and your grandfather is no fool. You needn't worry about speculative rumors. I'll say no more on the subject. Cheese on your eggs? Yes, please.